Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this World Pest Day Forum with the BPCA. I'm your host today, Alex Wade. You'll notice that I look starkly different from your usual host, the lovely Miss Natalie. So I apologize profusely, but there we have it. It will be me looking after you for the rest of the day today. As always, you're encouraged to use the chat section all the way through today just to comment on the presentations that you're hearing or discuss the ideas with your peers and colleagues. But if you want to ask your hosts or you want to ask the presenters any questions as we move forwards, please put them into the Q&A section so I'll be able to easily find them at the end of the presentations and be able to put your questions to our presenters and so they can answer them in real time for you. Our sponsors for the day are Purine, and you're going to hear from Taylan later on this morning as he gives a presentation for you all. And finally, if you're watching live and you've provided your CPD number, you are going to get your CPD points allocated to you, and there are 3 points awarded for this morning. So the very best of luck to you. We have an exciting and interesting agenda today, starting with Dr. Matthew Davies of Killgerm Chemicals, who's going to be talking about knowing your species, identifying pests of public health significance. So with that, I feel like I should do more introduction. I feel like I kind of have blasted through that relatively quickly. That being said, I think it's probably better to put Matthew on the spot and bringing him in as soon as we can. Matthew, are you there? Can you hear us?
Loud and clear, Alex. Good morning.
Lovely stuff. Yeah, apparently it was meant to take me 10 minutes to say that. I'm not entirely sure how I was meant to do that. But here we are, and there we are. So, how do you feel about starting just a couple of minutes early, Matthew?
Let's do it.
Lovely. In which case, I think I'm going to disappear off and allow you to continue on. Catch you in a bit.
Thanks very much, Alex, and good morning to everyone. So, happy World Pest Day as well. I hope everyone can see the screen clearly. If Alex just gives me a thumbs up, I'll know that that's the case. So, my presentation then is all about knowing your species, and as Alex said, that the title, Identifying Pests of Public Health Significance. I'm focusing mainly on the insects, and that's probably predictable with it being me. And what I've tried to do with the title of today in mind, it being World Pest Day, I've tried to make a few links there. Some of the insect species that I'll talk about do have that movement, globally, or at least within Europe. And, they're not respecting sort of boundaries or borders, moving from country to country, sometimes off their own steam or hitchhiking thanks to human activities. And the bedbug Cymex lectularius is the perfect example of hitchhiking on human activities and spreading globally. The other image that I've got on the first slide there is the Asian tiger mosquito, and of course its distribution in Europe and occasional efforts in other parts of the world. And the monitoring systems that we've got in the UK, we can talk a few things over that. And as well as that distribution, another thing to say about it being World Pest Day is around the world, we can talk in the same language. Using the proper scientific names, the species names of insects, it is that universal language. And I've actually said Asian tiger mosquito there. What you do hear said, some people will just say tiger mosquito. I've even heard some people say that the forest day mosquito, because of its habits, it bites during the day and it can be in forested areas. And I've been told by sort of real mosquito experts that the banding coloration on the legs of the Asian tiger mosquito may be to do with partly almost a camouflage feature. Imagine the sunlight breaking through the tree canopies. So a few little interesting things there. Let's all speak the same language universally. And then the insects that I'll cover will be ones that have that potential to move throughout the world. So there we go. That's my little intro there for you all. When it comes to the identification, I'm pretty sure everyone on the call knows it is that first starting point in public health pest management, and it is crucial to effective pest control. Helps us pick the right methods in terms of control, give the right advice to clients in terms of housekeeping, proofing, hygiene, and all the rest. And it helps us select appropriate monitors to aid with identification of pests. And I do have this thing, I'm still quite traditional. We do like to get insect samples under the microscope just for that detailed reliable identification and relying on approved ID resources to help us do that. So still a nice traditional approach to insect ID. With that, that does lead me on to one of the opening slides. I've done some similar talks on this topic at a few workshops and events around the country this year, but I've made things a little bit different today. So if some people have seen things before, there are some different bits to come. This first image, I have been showing this to people face to face at events and ask them what they think it is. And a few people have shouted out at the events and said, that's a bit strange. Is it some type of spider? Is it some type of mite? Looks a little bit woodlousey. Not very technical terms there, but I think that's fair enough. And this is my sort of bugbear. There's the first pun of the day, bugbear. We do find people using images generated by artificial intelligence. And this is what AI thinks is a bed bug, Cymex lectularius. To me, it looks nothing like a bed bug whatsoever. So let's just be a little bit wary of AI generated images. Another reason to keep things traditional when it comes to insect ID. So just watch out for those. This is another AI generated image. And apparently AI thinks this is a bed bug as well. To me, it looks a little bit more cockroach-like. Thankfully, though, we do have the real deal, which is the next one here. So that's a bit of a relief there. But yeah, I do worry about sort of future generations using the internet to aid what they do in terms of ID, members of the public, what's out there, how accurate is it, how much can we rely on it? Well, we need that professionalism and expertise when it comes to the real stuff. Another thing I've been playing with, there are various bits of software out there that will try and identify images. And there's a particular one that's the second name of it is Lens. There will be other software outlets out there. And I've dropped an image into that web page just to see what it comes out with. And it's not bad, actually. I know that it's a biscuit beetle, Stagobium panaceum. And this software has picked that out as an example. There is a biscuit beetle there. And of course, we've got the American version, drugstore beetle, different common name, same insect, Stagobium panaceum. But this software isn't quite sure. It does offer up a few alternatives. And it does offer up the cigarette beetle, Lasioderma sericornis. And I say close, but no cigar. There's the first bad joke of the day. Had to slip that one in there. It also comes out with one of the hairy fungus beetles, Typhea cicoria. So it's pretty close, but not fully reliable. I would want, this one to be looked at physically. And actually, weakness of my image, we can see the golden hairs on the elytra and the striations, but what we can't see are the antennae, which are on this image. So that is a weakness of looking at images over the internet. You don't get all the different views and angles that you might need. And, that's another benefit of sending in physical samples. Okay, so I've probably said my piece on that one. Let's keep it traditional, get physical samples sent out for identification. Let's get them under the microscope and have someone who's experienced to have a look at those. And I'm forever carrying around little sample pots, 30 ml sample pots and a hand lens just to collect whatever I can on site and take that back for further analysis. When it comes to reference books, I have a little worry about this as well. With the modern age, websites, AI, everything being digitized, there aren't too many identification resources that are available online. I still find myself relying on kind of dusty old textbooks from the secondhand bookstore and internet booksellers, and they're still the best really when it comes to insect ID. I have noted though that the British ID handbooks here from the Royal ENTSOC, they are popping up online now in PDF form, so they've been digitized. So there are some good resources out there, but not everything. You do tend to have to search around the secondhand bookshops, and I wonder that once they've all been bought up, where are the next ones going to be? Are there any reprints? There aren't. So we lose a bit of resource in that respect as well. I think one of the benefits that Killgerm have in terms of our entomologists and other people out there that do this similar work, it's a nice thing to have a collection of insects that are pre-identified that you can contrast and compare with just for that reassurance. So we have a bank of samples like that that really help us with that side of things. And yeah, various training options out there as well. Okay, a few recommended books. if anyone wants to sort of note those down or just revisit this, I think the BPCA tend to upload these presentations onto YouTube. You can grab these books. They're quite handy to have, especially this one in your pocket, Insects of Britain and Western Europe. Common insect pests of stored food products. There were 5 of these available on a website called Abe Books, but because I'm selfish, I bought all 5 of them and gave them to my staff. So good luck trying to find that one out there. I might sell you one of mine for a higher price, only joking. But yeah, these things are all available and useful. So grab some copies of those. My other little comment to make is in terms of identifying insects, yes, it does come with experience, even with all the resources out there, textbooks and so on. It does take years to get to that sort of confidence level. And it sort of brings me on to the bedbug section of my talk. This is a really nice little survey from University of Sheffield researchers, Reinhardt et al. We're thinking of Richard Naylor as well on this paper. And there it is. Those in the 60+ age bracket were pretty reliable. Over 20% of them were able to identify, recognize bed bugs when they were presented with them. So there is that age demographic there. I am in this one, 30 to 44. I won't tell you which end, you can make your own judgment there. But me and my peers, we did okay. Didn't quite hit 15% success rate in terms of recognizing bed bugs. But yeah, it definitely comes with experience. So that's the point of that one. My other thing to mention is, yes, I've talked about identification in its purest form, using dichotomous keys, microscopes, and so on to work with a physical insect sample. But of course, when we're out in the field, we're looking for signs where, probably won't call it true identification, but it's signs of activity. Bed bugs, under the influence of their own aggregation pheromone, causing aggregations and then leaving blood spotting behind as signs. So that they're part of the package when we talk about field identification. So that's an example of signs, and some blood spotting here on a tissue paper where bed bugs have been kept behind and some eggs that are fastened on there. But a little thing for me to mention, I'm always interested in having discussions with people about what constitutes current activity. If we're being really particular, we need that current insect activity to justify application of insecticides. And when we've got dead insects, spent eggs or exuviae, which are the shed exoskeleton of bed bugs as they develop through the nymphal stages, that's not necessarily indicating current activity. Really, live bed bugs would be the real ceiling of the deal there. Of course, on balance, the signs of activity like this would suggest live bed bugs. And that's where we go for that detailed inspection, plus some of the monitoring devices. And I will mention some of those as an aid to ID as well. Interestingly, the very highly trained bed bug dogs, the sniffer dogs, certain ones will only signal on live bed bugs, live nymphs, and viable eggs, not the exuviae, not the dead insects, and not the spent egg casings. So that's impressive. Another example of exuviae there. There are identification keys as well, just to help us pin out if it is the common bed bug, Cymex lectularius, or one of the bat bugs or bird bugs, or even a tropical bed bug. So there are keys available to do that, pictorial and dichotomous in combination. Just going to play this little video as well. People do ask us at Killgerm on the courses and over the phone about people being bitten by bed bugs. And we say, well, look, somebody reporting bites, that isn't sort of the gold standard that would trigger treatment. There could be other insects that cause those bite-like reactions. There could be allergic responses, delusions of parasitosis, illusory parasitosis, and so on. It's a topic in itself. And let's have a little look at an early stage nymph just taking a blood meal from a human. It is time lapse. This would normally take between 5 and 10 minutes, but it's vastly sped up. So there we go, just taking a blood meal there, taking many times its own body weight in blood, and all of a sudden, there's this huge distension in the abdomen there, really hammering home that bed bugs take more than their own body weight in human blood, leading to the blood spotting that's a sign of activity. So good video there. It wasn't me that was being fed on, not this time anyway. And we get the different bite-like reactions with bed bugs. Again, that's not reliable. It could be other insects, and sometimes they're in a line. Sometimes they may have been disturbed. We had this sort of triple appearance. But again, bites, not fully reliable, need other signs, need further identification to be sure. On the bites and the blood spotting and so on, a relatively recent paper. I will drop things in like this as we go through, just the odd little bit about the public health significance of bed bugs, because it is relevant worldwide, and the public health significance of the other insects that I talk about. A recent paper has noted histamine being excreted in Cymex lectularius feces. That may generate allergic responses in humans. So it's just something extra to add to that knowledge base there and that importance that we get with infestations or activity. This is a really interesting slide about bed bugs and their feeding behavior, their biting, or rather piercing and sucking mouth parts, and human responses. Now, it's still on the identification theme. We get queries about this all the time. Someone's been bitten, they get the bite-like responses. Does that time frame allow them to say, it was this hotel that I was bitten in? Our answer is there's too much variability. I respond after about 24 hours when I've been bitten by bed bugs or other biting insects like fleas. So it's pretty reliable for me. But let's have a look at this study. It's the University of Sheffield again. And these first 4 individuals, these brave people, they volunteered to be bitten by bed bugs. That first biting session, these 4 people here, their response, the bite-like reactions, in a couple of the people, it took over 10 days, about 11 days, for those lumps to appear. So that's quite an extended period. These brave 4 people then came back for another biting session. And we're looking at 1 or 2 days then, similar to my reaction, for their bites to appear. They came back for more and much shorter time span for the bite-like reactions. Eventually, after 4 biting sessions, these 4 people being subjected to bedbug bites showed an immediate reaction to the bites. They become sensitized over time. So you can see that variation. It really does make a difference. It's not fully reliable. It varies from person to person. Depends on the number of biting instances you've been exposed to. Person number 24 is an interesting one. Look at them. No response after biting session 1. No response after biting session 2. No response after biting session 3. So that just goes to show there are some people in the population that have no response to biting insects, and in this case, is bed bugs. So again, not fully reliable. So let's move on from that. I think just to mention, there are various monitors out there. We've seen a growth in monitoring options for bed bugs that aids identification of activity. There are pheromone-based monitors that mimic that human host odor. There is data behind those on their effectiveness, and trials show that they can be useful in monitoring for bed bugs. So just wanted to flag those up as an option. Another option, we see the swab kits, the detection kits that detect antigens left behind by bed bugs for a period of time. And again, peer-reviewed studies showing their effectiveness. Just another consideration out there, another development, something else to think about in terms of bedbug monitoring. And another quick mention, technology regarding aggregation pheromones and those being incorporated into bedbug monitors. Again, peer-reviewed research, independent researchers have looked at this, and that has been really helpful in terms of bedbug monitoring, and some good data there on how they can improve the catch and detection rates when looking at bedbug activity. So just floating those as relatively modern developments that aid identification. Yeah, moving on past the bedbug, I think it is a bit of a hodgepodge of jumping from one insect to the other, but with good reason. Like I said, there's a variety of things that we could encounter. I will briefly mention the Asian hornet Vespa velutina, just because only a couple of days ago it did hit the news. We've seen that Asian hornets this year, genetic studies have been done, and they are related. The ones that have been found, a handful of them, related to a nest from last year, showing that survival over winter. So that is a new finding that's been reported in the media. It is accurate, it is truthful. So it led to me just to include a few slides as a reminder on the Asian hornet. So yeah, just to run through the key features, we've got the legs with the yellow ends. That's characteristic, that entirely dark brown or black velvety body, especially on the thorax, And then this abdomen here, that fourth segment, that almost stripe being quite clearly orange to yellow on the abdomen there. So very characteristic. Queens at 30 mil, workers at 25 mil. So smaller than the European hornet. We've got that contrasting abdomen appearance there, just so we don't mistake the two. And then the classic behavior outside of honeybee colonies where they hawk and hover and pick them off at will. And we've got further images comparing them with the European hornet down here. And these ID sheets are available online on the internet. Go on the Non-Native Species Secretariat and download those. Also get yourselves a copy of the Asian Hornet app. I've got that on my phone for reporting purposes and as a reminder for the key identifying features. And we know it's that significant threat to honeybee health. Pest controls have a duty really to report that to the relevant authorities. And not to be confused with the wood wasp. Members of the public will get confused and report this. I can see possibly why in some cases there's that long ovipositor that may look like a sting, but it isn't. Definitely not the Asian hornet. We've also got the hornet mimic hoverfly here. Again, don't get that confused, and don't get the median wasp confused either. All those features are available for people to digest at their own leisure, so it's a real sort of reminder in this case. One thing I will mention, and it's just a bit of a signpost really, I'm not going to go into the detail today because it's a presentation in itself, but I will urge listeners to go on the Non-Native Species Secretariat website and search out their new document on nest identification for Asian hornets. It is new. I think it came out the back end of last year. I think it's really useful. You should get a copy of it. It covers secondary nests, it covers primary nests, the location, the general shape, and so on. And very usefully, it contrasts and compares that nest with other species, such as the European hornet, the median wasp, and the common wasp. So really good examples there, comparison points, just helps everybody. So definitely get yourselves a copy of that. I've saved mine on file just for reference. Okay. This animation should be coming through on your screens. It is showing the spread in Europe. And just watch as that works its way through. It does go all the way up to 2023. I'll let it play through a second time just to give people a chance. And it's a bit of a World Pest Day theme, that movement of insects. But yeah, from 2004, just watch that tick through France and then work its way through in other regions. All the way through 2015, 2016, 2017, just keeps on going all the way up to 2023, just to illustrate that point and that movement, that transfer. Okay, moving on to some other insects. There was a recent BPCA forum where I did do an entire presentation on the grey silverfish. I noted that's now been uploaded to the BPCA website. In fact, their YouTube channel, I should say. So the full presentation is there. With that in mind, I'll keep this one pretty brief and also make sure that I'm on time for the next speaker after me. When it comes to the grey silverfish, that has been increasing in terms of its distribution and spread. We want to make sure we can tell the grey silverfish or paperfish, to give it one of its other common names, apart from the common silverfish. So Tenolopisma longicaudatum is the grey silverfish, which is this individual here. Just briefly, it's the very long antennae and the very long so-called tails that mark it out as being different to the common silverfish, Lepisma saccharina. Look at the difference. The antennae are nowhere near the same length, and neither of those tails, to use the informal terminology for that. The reason we want to know the difference between the two, well, the grey silverfish is less susceptible to a reduction in humidity. So it's not the most important control measure, whereas it is for the common silverfish. Also, the grey silverfish is on labels, a particular label for a gel bait that covers that species and also covers cockroaches. So we have a baiting option for the grey silverfish. So just important for me to mention those key features there. This is a sample of a grey silverfish that I collected from Poland. And just a note on those features, the antennae and the so-called tails, to use the informal terminology, they are quite delicate and they've actually broken off in this video here, which isn't playing at the moment, but never mind that. It just shows it moving around in characteristic fashion. And yeah, we can see that those tails are broken off and the antennae aren't visible there. In the full presentation that's available, I do go into detail on the distribution in the United Kingdom and Ireland, and that's new information as this has started to move through the UK, made its way over from Europe. So that's available to see there on the map. And also looking at its distribution in Europe, red being confirmed records and orange being unverified, but very likely to be there. And then we've got an idea of abundance here. The darker red indicates higher levels of abundance of the grey silverfish in particular European countries. And yes, even though we'd call it a nuisance insect, I sometimes hesitate to define insects as public health and nuisance and casual intruders and so on. Sometimes there are blurred lines and we pigeonhole things, and it can be a fluid situation. But one of our students from Aston University who works with Killgerm did isolate bacteria from grey silverfish that were sampled in the UK: Staphylococcus, Acinetobacter, Bacillus, and Cocuria. These were taken from the exoskeleton and internal structures of the grey silverfish, and we class them as opportunistic pathogens. So there's some potential there for risk to public health just from the grey silverfish. So we've got to bear that in mind and treat it with importance. There's potential for mechanical transfer of bacteria with that particular species. Just to make sure you've got an idea on the guidance regarding grey silverfish, there is a really useful report from the Norwegian Institute of Public Health that covers many practical tips and advice on treating them. And there's more detail on that on my separate grey silverfish talk as well. So dig into that for baiting techniques and strategies. Definitely a useful thing to look at. And of course, like everything, new species, it generates innovation, and there are more specific targeted monitoring options now for this species as well. So make sure you're using the right monitors in the right situation. The more specific ones are better. We're not always thinking about the general insect monitors. If we know what we're likely to deal with, go and get a specific monitor. It'll be a more effective option. Okay, just moving through more. We've got the harlequin ladybird just for a few minutes, and also the brown marmorated stink bug. I sort of mentioned, didn't I, casual intruders. And we've got to just keep note of these as well. I'll go straight in there with my classification of the harlequin ladybird. Not a public health pest, casual intruder. I've started to call it a crawling version of the clusterfly. If you haven't come across it yet, then look towards the back end of this year. It'll start to form overwintering clusters. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, then it won't be long before you do. It's really the largest ladybird species that we'll encounter frequently. Brownish legs, typical colour pattern here on that pronotum. And this is the most common colour morph. But just have a look. There are various other colour forms as well. And these are the larvae predating on greenfly, on aphids. So look out for those, especially in the warm conditions. And note that the adults fly really well. You do find a lot of them on electronic fly killers on the glue boards. So just a little observation there. But yeah, a crawling version of a clusterfly is a good description of these. And just comparing them, that's one of the different colour morphs, larger than the two-spot ladybird, Adalia bipunctata, and a variety of colour morphs on the left-hand side there. So one to watch out for. And here's the spread of the harlequin ladybird from 2004 until 2014. Don't think I've got lazy and not bothered to get the data beyond 2014. It's just because there are that many data points. They just sit on top of each other and it looks no difference. So we'll go through these and see how they spread over time. So 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And yet data from them just stacks on top of each other. So really widespread throughout the UK. Like I say, you might not have seen it yet, but it's around the corner. Just one to watch out for. Brown marmorated stink bug as well. I did mention that's another casual intruder. And this one in particular has popped up on a couple of occasions in the UK. One of my technical colleagues found it. I think they were tucked away in a bait station, which sort of pleases me from a pest control point of view. It seems like the full cycle, doesn't it? Insects taking harbourage in bait stations for rodents. The brown marmorated stink bug, yeah, get it sent off for identification. We've got this sort of banding or coloration on the fringes here, and the banding coloration on the antennae. It would be easy to mistake it with shield bugs and various other things out there in the UK that are more common. It's more just to flag it up as one for the future or the near future. And here are examples from Europe and America where they do come in huge numbers and form these overwintering clusters, much like the harlequin ladybird and much like cluster flies. So another one to add to the list in terms of the potential for the future in overwintering clusters and a nuisance pest in the UK. In other parts of the world, it can be a serious pest of crops and fruit. We anticipate in the UK perhaps a lower level problem, but one just to look out for in the future. And that's the species name, Haliomorpha halis, to give it its full name there. And here's an image of it from Pest Control News. And this is one of my confessions. I'm here talking about insect identification. It's a constant worry of mine that I'll get it wrong one day, and it may happen. We are human. And it's always a scary thing when you hit publish on hard documents. I remember being up at night worrying about this particular front page of Pest Control News because I do contribute to that alongside the Killgerm work. I think I sent a message to the leading expert on brown marmorated stink bug. I think it's a guy called Tim Hay in Switzerland, and saying, look, this is the front page. We've sent it to print. Is it the correct image? I think Tim kindly reminded me, Matt, it's my image. I sent it to you. Relax, go to sleep, that kind of thing. But yeah, we've got to take care with printed images. A bit different on a website. If there is a mistake, you can hit refresh and the correct image may appear magically. But certainly in hard copy, really got to take note. So definitely need to get these things right. Okay, so that's my sort of PCN angle on that one, the brown marmorated stink bug. Now, I think the last one coming up will be, yeah, just a bit on its distribution there. We've got its distribution marked in terms of the blue dots. So we see where it is in Europe. It has popped up in the UK, and actually this is climatic modelling for the brown marmorated stink bug in Europe, showing areas where it is suitable or unsuitable for it to settle and be found. But yeah, it has popped up in various parts of the world there. So again, something on the move, something spreading. We've got that bit of an angle in terms of a World Pest Day. And the last one to cover is, it is the Asian tiger mosquito, Aedes albopictus. And I suppose it is a nice one, not a nice one, an appropriate one. No pests are nice. That's the whole point. We're in pest control. It is listed as one of the world's worst invasive alien species. And in fact, in terms of public health, I think it is the #1 most invasive species worldwide, according to relevant research. So it does feel like the right one to end on, that real significance of it being the worst in terms of spread and threat to public health as a full package. So yeah, definitely one to consider. We can see this central white line on the thorax here. That's distinctive. We can see the banded appearance on the legs here. The UK HSA have got monitoring systems in place for Aedes albopictus in terms of ovitraps, monitoring for larvae, monitoring for eggs, and so on. So there is a system in the UK to protect us from the Asian tiger mosquito. But I think as a general awareness, everybody in public health pest control just needs to be hot on things like this to protect us from invasive species. So yeah, the world's most invasive insect species, bit of a bold claim to finish us off with, really. And here is information on its distribution. And we've got the red spots for where it's established in Europe. So we can see that all the sort of hot spots, Mediterranean, Italy, Spain, France, and so on. And in these regions, one of the main issues, yes, we're worried about the spread of dengue and chikungunya. It is a vector of these things to humans. But something that, maybe in the UK we're not fully aware of in terms of its impact is the voracious biting nuisance of Aedes albopictus. It's a ferocious daytime biter. Where it's numerous, that can really impact on, the cafe culture. It can impact on recreation outdoors. a severe biting nuisance in these areas if it isn't kept under control. So more than a vector, we do have that biting nuisance, which is very significant as well. So just worth remembering that one. Okay, and then over the sort of late 2000 teens, there have been eggs and larvae that have been spotted in the south, truck stops around the M25 and so on. They've been dealt with and eradicated by Public Health England and other collaborators. So still monitoring for this to protect ourselves for sure. Okay, I've got a few other things to say about Aedes albopictus as well. This is definitely a case of getting the identification right to try and avoid controversy. I've been around a while now in the industry. I started in 2005, and I do remember this from 2007. And the newspaper report came out in the Daily Mail. It was online. This was the big one. The Asian tiger mosquito, Aedes albopictus, has landed in the UK. Big news, wheels in motion at Killgerm, wheels in motion at the government. Worry about, how has it got in? Why hasn't it been spotted earlier? How is it that the Daily Mail are reporting it and not entomologists involved with the survey of this thing? So yeah, then we go on to the next page of the article, and here it is. So there's the entomologist who did the ID. So Aaron Dendrowski. Aaron will be a bit older now, so no offense to Aaron, but at the time, probably wasn't the right guy to pick out an Asian tiger mosquito. And a member of the public as well. We can't knock people's enthusiasm. I'm not being critical. It is important for everybody, the public included, to report insects where it's suspicious or important. If it isn't the one, then fine. We've done the right thing as part of horizon scanning and sort of citizen science and taking things seriously. But a member of the public here as well. I've seen tiger mosquitoes when I traveled around Europe and thought this looked like one. The mosquito which has yellow stripes, so that's not correct. And also, they are very big mosquitoes. That's not the case. They are a bit more on the small side. It actually led to this news report. It was a misidentification. It led to Public Health England, or the Health Protection Agency, as they were called back then, putting out their own press release regarding the mosquitoes from Cheltenham. And they spelt out the confusion over ID. What's probably happened in that case, the folks involved, the members of the public, will have spotted Culiceta, or a Culiceta annulata, a larger house-type mosquito with banded appearance, stripy legs. It would be easy for them to mistake that, but the size difference is quite significant. Look at the wingspan, 13 to 15 mil for Culiceta compared to 7 to 8 mil for the Asian tiger mosquito. So yeah, real difference there. And in fact, just to give that, we've got the sort of scale there, one versus the other. That's Culiceta annulata here, and that's Aedes albopictus on the other side. So common in the UK, Culiceta annulata. Could imagine people getting it wrong with the banded appearance, but nothing really like the Asian tiger mosquito there. So the last one here, I don't recommend doing this, guys. We've got to look after ourselves in terms of public health. I did go to Gibraltar just to gain some experience regarding the Asian tiger mosquito. I do seem to get the nice jobs at Killgerm, probably because I'm the first to put my hand up and volunteer. Sometimes that works in your favour. But a good few years ago, nice sunny trip to Gibraltar, learn about their monitoring techniques, identification and control of the Asian tiger mosquito. I did take one for the team. I'm on for photo opportunities, and here it is, the female just embedded into my skin, right at the back of the ankle, a bit of a sensitive area there, taking a blood meal from me. Should have been a bit hotter on PPE, should have been a bit hotter on mosquito repellent as well. At the time, the risk to my health really was nuisance and perhaps an infected bite rather than vectoring dangerous diseases. But look at that. This is probably a bit too personal for hundreds of people on a live webinar. But so what? I've shown the slide. It's too late to go back now. And that is the fluid-filled vesicle just above my sock line. And I can comment on this when I did say the voracious biting behaviour during the daytime. This did happen to me, and it was in the daytime. And the severe biting nuisance, I would definitely concur with that. That's probably the worst insect bite that I had inflicted on me. I did react quite strongly. And that fluid-filled vesicle, intensely itchy, painful. And when it pops on the plane home and the liquid seeps into your sock, you get a real sense that you've been done by that mosquito. So we've got to take it very seriously indeed. So certainly watch out for things like that. And I did respond quickly. That one was the day after in terms of the bite-like nuisance. You know, like what we said with the bed bugs and the locals. When I was out surveying with some of the locals, the Gibraltarians, some of them, their reactions were so quick to being bitten by Aedes albopictus, I could see the lumps appearing on hands and ankles before my eyes because they've been sensitized to the bites because they have been bitten a lot more frequently than me. So there we are. Good. That's my sort of personal stuff done. So that brings me to the end of the presentation, really, and we should be okay for time. So that sort of leaves me to say thank you. And we are around about sort of 11 minutes past 10. So I think that leaves a bit of wiggle room for some questions, and it sort of respects the next speaker as well and makes sure we're on time for them. So if I stop share, that brings me to the end, and I'll wait and see what Alex has got in store for me. We had a few comments popping up. There we go.
Oh,
Cheers.
here I am. Oh, that was a very near panicky moment. I was desperately trying to unmute myself, be like, I'm here. Don't worry. I've got you. I'm coming back again. So don't worry. We do definitely have some comments coming up. And I have to say, I am with you with the whole bitten by mosquitoes and reacting. I went to Southeast Asia on a FIOPA conference years ago, and I got bitten by a mosquito out there. And it was like somebody had pushed a squash ball underneath the skin of my arm. It was the biggest, angriest lump I'd ever had. So there we go. We can be lumpy brothers together with the mosquitoes. And there we have it. But there are some questions coming in, and I'll start asking because we've got a little bit of time. And there's some, guys, I can see some questions coming in the comments. If you just want to drop those across to the Q&A so I can see them when we don't miss them. But Matt, there's a lot of love coming for you in the comments there. So if you want a nice little confidence boost later on, just going to have a look at those. But to go through some of your questions, Gina Taylor has asked, do you have any identification book recommendations? Now, I know you put some books up at the very beginning. Would it be too rude to ask us to, could you type those out just for us a little bit, just to answer to Gina's questions, just give us a list of those books so other building entomologists can come and find those? Would that be all right?
Yeah, absolutely fine. I think do you want me to type them into the chat?
Yeah, either type them into the chat or rest of it rather than people furiously scribbling bits and bobs down.
Yeah,
but yeah, if you chuck them into the chat, that would be.
I'll apologise because I might not get the titles and authors 100% correct, but it's not a true ID book, but Insects of Britain and Western Europe, Chinnery.
Lovely. Oh, while you're chucking that up there, you can consider your next question.
Sort of field recognition. Folks at the Natural History Museum use that on their sort of tours and engagement with the public. It's one everyone should have in the van.
Yes.
I don't leave home without it, even on a weekend, Alex.
Yeah, that's it. Just even a casual walk through the fields of Britain. Make sure you got your guide with you. Absolutely always. So Mike Gardner now asks, any recommendations on insecticides for the stink bug? I think we could probably expand that to any of these invasive species we've seen today. So any recommendations for control of the stink bug?
Yeah, I think if we were to encounter that and it was in a nuisance situation, then I would be going for the label text of crawling insects as that umbrella phrase. With it being, a bug rather than a beetle or other groups of insects, and we don't really have many references to bugs on labels in general, the true bugs, then I'd be looking for crawling insects as an umbrella phrase. Yeah, just the bed bug one, is it? It doesn't feel broad enough for me to make a recommendation for that. But yeah, crawling insects, and that gives us flexibility for cold fogging treatments and residual surface sprays. As far as I know, they're susceptible to the common pyrethroids, things like permethrin and deltamethrin, and from what we've seen overseas. So we can keep it simple with that. And I'll give a similar answer and preempt for the harlequin ladybird. Again, I would go for the crawling insect phrase. But if there's a general reference to beetles, ladybirds are beetles. So that would work. Fogging treatments and residual sprays as well. I think on the harlequin ladybird, I tend to recommend to people that if you can reach them with a vacuum cleaner, do that, dispose them in an outside bin securely, keep it simple and avoid chemical use. But where there's that threat where they could fall into food and cause contamination, then I think we're justified to use insecticides and follow the label in that case for those. They fly very, very well. Seen hundreds and hundreds of them on glue boards for EFK units. I think I said that on the talk as well.
I believe as well, you say they fly very well. Their wings were used as inspiration for a lot of these satellites, weren't they? The origami of their wings. Go on, you know what I'm talking about there.
I have heard that one. I was about to say beetle wing cases remind me of the DeLorean from Back to the Future.
Yes, the seagull wings. Oh, if I do that, apparently I disappear. So no, that's perfect. Thank you ever so much for that, Matt. There are a couple of good ones coming up now. So we've got one which says, are there any natural or biological methods to control mosquitoes and tiger mosquito populations without necessarily resorting to harmful pesticides?
Yeah, there's the research, isn't there, from Oxitec about the release of sterile individuals.
Hmm.
So I suppose that would come into the non-chemical, non-insecticide type of control. Apart from that, simple mosquito management in the UK, we talk about removal of stagnant water, and the big thing that we hang our hat on is we use the term small urban containers,
Okay.
and that you know the score. It's pots and pans and tin cans, um, you know, uh, water troughs at allotments and bird baths and so on. But small urban containers makes it sound posh. So they're the main things. BTI is chemical, really, derived from the bacterium. Yeah, I'm not too hot on the predatory
BTI
side.
is fascinating, though, isn't it? So anyone who hasn't heard of BTI before, BTI is a really fascinating thing. It's technically a bacteria, isn't it? Which is, but do we find much of that in the UK? I mean, I can't remember any big suppliers of it.
Yeah, there's an authorization for that one for mosquito control in the UK, so that's an option. But on the predatory side of things, that side of the question, I'll admit that's not my area at the minute.
Hmm. Now that's okay, and I think actually you've very much covered question 2 from there,
Oh,
which is what are the environmental factors which influence the spread. And so, of course, you've got your, what did you call them? Small urban. What was I need to
yeah,
remember the
small urban
name?
containers, junk that holds water. Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely going to be a factor. Any other factors which will influence the spread of these guys that we need to look out for, other than our small urban containers?
Yeah, the other one is the ability for the eggs to survive cold temperatures and desiccation, become reactivated in water. That lends them to be transported via used tires. And what is it now? The official number of used tires brought into the UK is estimated to be around 1 million, but then there'll be many more brought in via unverified routes. So when someone says there's a one in a million chance, well, think of that number. It can happen.
It becomes a very real number at that point, doesn't it? We got 2 minutes left, which I think gives us chance for just one more question, I think. So Vicky asks, aren't we well placed to ID a lot of these insects during our EFK analysis? Is this a good time to apply this knowledge to our industry?
Yeah, definitely. And, it's another form of monitoring, isn't it? Certainly for flying insects, you do get weird and wonderful things that pop up on the glue boards. And of course, it's sometimes tricky though, isn't it? You get a glue board and identifying the insect on it when it's stuck can be a bit awkward sometimes. And the electronic fly killers, you do tend to lose some of the delicate fragments of insects, especially mosquitoes. The legs tend to drop off and so on, which makes it a bit awkward. But yeah, they're a source of insect activity and a record of it, and can be used for ID purposes. So yeah, that's a helpful point. It does make you think. paying that extra attention to your EFK and catch tray analysis is valuable. Yep.
Excellent stuff. And I think that the last one, but it's less of a question, more of a request. Some people are asking to see some of your slides specifically around the ID sections of it. So I'm not sure. Can you and Killgerm make some of these ID slides available so people can look at them at their leisure?
Yeah, definitely. If I mean, you can email me direct, matthew.davies@killgerm.com, or go through folks today from BPCA, and just ask, and I'll do what I can for you. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I think you handled the random barrage of questions like an absolute trooper there, and everyone's absolutely loved your talk. It's there's a lot of love coming for that on the chat there. So thank you ever so much, and always really enjoy listening to your talks on insects. Bug nerds together here. So there we go. Until next time, we will see you later.
Yes, thank you.